We've been doing movie nights for
years.
So Gen Xer and
A Gen Z. Random weird moments that the two of us have experienced, and there are a lot of those.
And he crashes them.
As you do.
It's like, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, where did this come from? Why are we singing?
I mean, you're not going to learn anything about the movies listening to us talk. This is the Argo City Podcast. Film, conventions, and fan life with Maddie and Matthew. Okay, and we are back this week. It was Movie Box of Doom. We're picking from mine. And we got Star Trek Insurrection.
I've seen a couple of the Star Trek movies, but this is one of... I mean, honestly, I've seen most of them, haven't I?
You've seen most of them. We went through, out of the original series, you did not see the first one, and you did not see the fifth one. We may still do 5 at some point, I don't know. As far as the Next Generation ones, you haven't seen the last one. We're not going to do it. It's terrible, and there's stuff in there that neither of us are going to like.
Okay.
I'll throw some clips on when we do previews. But I mean, for my money, this is the last good Star Trek movie. And not everybody agrees with me. This one's actually kind of divisive.
I don't know how it can be divisive. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
A lot of Star Trek fans rank this as one of the worst.
How can they rank this as, like, the worst? I mean, what's that? You said the fifth one's really bad. What is that one on the ranking?
It's down there, too.
Oh.
The fifth one has problems, but I'll defend certain things on that because of studio interference, no time, that kind of stuff. Whereas this one... Well, we get some of the same complaints. It's too much like an episode. It's not like galaxy-wide stakes. It's not huge, big. I don't know.
Like, is there really an issue with that, though? I mean, I would almost think it being closer to the series would make people like it more.
I would think so too, especially since at this point, Next Generation's not on TV. At this point, Deep Space Nine and Voyager are running on TV every week. Okay. And this takes place during kind of where we're at on our Deep Space Nine watch during the Dominion War. They mentioned it. They actually tied it in really well. Yeah,
like they didn't outright say it, but they did like make sure to reference it. They referenced it a couple times with like the drug and stuff, and with that whole situation too, which was pretty interesting. I wasn't expecting to have that much of a crossover. Mm-hmm.
And, well, they've got to mention it a little bit, too, because Worf's on Deep Space Nine at this point, and
he comes
they have...
back.
They have to have an excuse to bring him back in the movies. This time, they didn't even bother with an excuse. They started to give the excuse and then walked away, so they didn't have to think of something.
Honestly, that's pretty good writing, though.
But there's a lot of that, too. That was the other thing that a lot of people complain about, that a lot of people think there's too much humor in this.
Honestly, I mean, there's 3 moments that really stand out in particular, but I didn't really notice it that much, to be honest. It just kind of felt normal, I suppose.
Yeah,
I mean, like, there was that one awkward scene where Picard is just, like, dancing in his bedroom and looks at himself in the mirror, which seemed kind of out of place, but, like, and that weird, like, remote scene, I mean, it seemed pretty normal to me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well, these people have been working together for a while now, and and then of course it's Jonathan Frakes, it's Commander Riker directing it, so he gets those. One of the things I was looking at was it's all those little character moments that you get to have in the TV series, and you don't get to have those when you're just doing a movie. So it's like he almost felt like he had to get all of them in.
Yeah, that was really, really cool.
It's almost there's more than usual. It's almost up to like MCU level, like.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense since they're all kind of like tied to each other.
But no, I like this one. This one is one of my favorites. I actually like it better than First Contact and the Borg one, which is the one everybody cites as the best one. I like this better. The Borg one is just them drifting from one catastrophe to another,
Ugh.
taking the ship back. This has a story.
Honestly, like, I'm going to kind of take the lead here for a minute, but, like, I honestly really liked this whole plot line revolving around Data this time around. I don't particularly have a favorite character when it comes to Star Trek, but he is one of my favorites to watch, just because he's humorous, and I love his cat. But I really loved, like, his whole story about him being, like, slightly corrupted or, like, losing his memory, and then him trying to bond with the kid throughout the entire movie. Which was, like, it started off where the kid was just, like, really nervous, and then they started talking more, and then the movie ends with them sitting in a hay bale together, which is the most ironic thing ever, but I love it. And, like, those little details like that, even with the kid constantly carrying this adorable little caterpillar, was really cool to kind of just see that going on through. We were, even, like, people that weren't the main focus, like, the characters that weren't Star Trek, like
the Federation, yeah,
Starfleet. It was even cool getting to kind of see that develop with the other characters. Another thing I really particularly liked about this movie was just the whole thing about, like, the planet making you younger and stuff. And I remember it kept throwing me for loop after loop after loop. I was not catching on to some of these plot twists and stuff. Like, the fact that these people are so old, and even towards the end when we find out that, like, the guys with their skins
the bad guys
the
good guys are all the
they're
same.
the same thing. And I'm just like, oh my god. How did, like, I get that, like, 100 years have passed, but my goodness! Because they were trying to artificially keep themselves alive, and I know you had to kind of explain that as we went through. But that was really, really cool to me, because I wasn't really expecting any of that.
It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting look. It's something they hadn't played with a whole lot on the TV show. And this was the other thing, too, because this is a crew that you know. We went through a year going through a lot, hitting, like, all the highlights of Next Generation. And so you're steeped enough in this series, in this mythology to get what's going on and to pick up.
Yeah, for the most part. It's been a little while since we've been with this particular crew, but I definitely like this crew. Like I said, I really like Data as a character. I've always really liked the counselor in this show. I'm still going to continue to bring up the fact that Data has a cat, and I love that. And every time I see him in an episode or in a movie, I'm like, where's the cat? Show me the cat.
At this point, things are kind of slowing down. 2 shows, the movies are coming out. The whole franchise is getting a little overexposed, but also it gets sometimes a little bit too shooty. The captain is now an executive producer on the movies, which is why you're seeing him run around with a gun a lot more. And it almost feels out of character, like the dancing. It all feels out of... That's because Patrick Stewart wants to do... I want to do something different. He's a far more kind of goofy guy than what you see in the character.
Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing. But it's different now, sitting here in 2025 as opposed to, I think this is 1996.
Oh, wow, that movie is old.
98. All right. So, because even though it's a little bit guns a-blazing, there's still some moral dilemmas. There's some social commentary. They're not preaching it at you, and they give you every side of the story. They let you draw your own conclusions. They want to make you think. It's the same kind of thing you come away every time we do a Deep Space Nine. You come away from that too.
Yeah, it's like it's every single time you do one of those, I'm always surprised that, like, it makes my brain hurt. And that's because even now in media, it's hard to find smart media these days. Smart shows in general, where they don't just, like, give you all the answers, which, to be fair, makes me struggle a little bit. But that's
because I'm showing you what
it
could be, what it used to be, and now you're seeing what it is, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like I've always admired the fact that they will give you so many different ideas and go over so many topics. I don't recall if it was, I think it was last week's episode of Deep Space Nine where they went over the whole idea of drugs and stuff. And I was, like, thoroughly surprised that they even covered that in Star Trek. So that's one of the things that the series is really good at, is covering those topics, not, like, shoving it in your face, but just kind of letting it be there as an afterthought. Like, wait, connecting these two, is this, like, referencing this?
Good fiction can do that, and science fiction is really ideally placed for that. And so it's nice that we still see that here, that we still see that in Next Generation films and Insurrection. Like, it's been a few months, but I showed you a couple of the new Star Trek movies, the ones with all the flashy lights where
like the ones they remade.
Yes, new crew pretending to be the old crew, kind of looks like a bunch of kids in Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
All the shooty and action kind of blockbuster stuff that I'm complaining about here, it's cranked up to 11 on those.
Yeah, and that's
Do we get any of that intelligent social commentary, any of that kind of I want to make you think in those?
Yeah, and it's just like I don't, like I said, it's been a while, but I don't recall. I mean, I liked the first movie, or at least the one that you showed me, because
they're fun adventures.
Yeah, but like you don't get that story, you don't have that connection with the crew. That's something that takes a lot of time to build up, and you can't exactly erase it and rewrite it. Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're not giving you. They're not trying to write something smart. They're trying to just write something exciting. And this is, looking back now, they're still trying to do both of those things. Mm-hmm. And I like that about this. I like the design of a lot of stuff in this too. It's the first time that they're really going CGI heavy in Star Trek. I love the alien ships. I love the bad guy ships.
Those did look really cool.
They're just really pretty and really interesting, at least on the outside. On the inside, they still look like the same as...
Kind of like a set.
Yeah, and this is where they probably should have gotten a different production designer to do some of those things. I wish that they had handed over those reins, because it's still the same people who did The Next Generation all the way back to the 80s. Mm-hmm. There was the Mike and Denise Okuda do a lot of all the computer graphics. They literally would hand draw them or paint them on underneath the glass, but it's their design aesthetic that
kind of made
just
it
keeps
what it
going
is.
and going and going. Instead of looking alien, it starts to all look the same. And I think we do still get some of that inside, but outside, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely gorgeous. The ships are gorgeous. The backgrounds are gorgeous. I've always been a fan of, like, that weird, like, spacey look. So I do find that, like, it's just so pretty. Even just the shots of, like, the ships connecting together. And I know we pointed this out earlier, but the fact that we can see faces through the windows of the ships was really, really cool.
From one to the other.
Action.
Yeah.
Like, that was so cool. And even just, like, the way that the ships move so fluidly, and that they, like, connect with each, like, how they connected in one part, or how we got to go underneath it towards the beginning of it, was just so cool.
And then there's the singing.
That did kind of throw me for a loop, to be honest. I don't even remember what it was from, but
it's from HMS Pinafore.
They just started singing a duet, and I'm just sitting here like, huh.
Well, we've seen in the show, they do plays on the ship. That's something that Data does to try and be more human. It's something that, like, Barclay, the shy engineer, would do, too.
I was going to say, I remember, like, them having the music concerts, but I don't recall anything about a play.
They do plays as well. So that's a normal thing. It's just part of recreation, because you're living on that ship.
Huh.
So this was a carryover. That is his voice, too, by the way.
Both of them singing that?
Yes.
Wow, good for them. He's got a good singing voice.
Particularly Data, yeah. He's got a singer.
He's got a really good baritone. That was, like, really, really cool. And like I said, it kind of threw me for a loop, because, like, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, where did this come from? Why are we singing? I mean, I'm totally down for this, but why are we singing? And even just them using that as a distraction so that they can connect the ships was just, like, hilarious.
But I mean, I mean, at least in our world, breaking out into song isn't all that unusual.
I guess not. I mean, it's definitely not for our family, I'd say.
But yes, there's fun stuff like that, and it's those fun little touches that we just that are kind of missing from some of the movies, that they don't get a chance to explore every single week.
Yeah, I've got another thing that just comes to mind real quick. I don't like the uniforms. I am so very picky about the uniforms in this show. Personally, I like the black top with the red underlay or the orange. I like that design. I hate the rest of these. I hated the ones where there was a flap over because it drove me insane. Yes, I hate these ones because they're blue. I hate those formal uniforms because they're white. Who makes a formal uniform white? Somebody get me in touch with the costume director. Actually, because they look ridiculous.
Those reminded me a little bit of Navy formals, but I find that interesting. You hate all of the movie uniforms, whether it's the original series movie uniforms or the Next Generation movie uniforms.
I didn't know it was all the movies.
No, you always react strongly against. You like the TV ones, which I think is so interesting because I like the movie ones better. I like these better,
ugly.
and I like the Monster Maroon ones from the original series better.
I like the pins better for this particular movie, but I find them so ugly. They look so out of place. If you had taken that blue and made it a black or a gray, then it probably would have been fine. But the white and just the weird shade of blue they use, I hate it. I hate it so much.
Well, you're in for a letdown because they're about to switch over to those on Deep Space Nine too.
No, are you kidding me?
Well, they have, because the TV shows are going on at the same time as the movies.
No, why would they switch them over?
They have to keep the continuity all together.
Just keep them separate, please. No. Their uniforms are decent at least. Why do we have to switch them?
The MCU isn't the first shared universe. This was sharing universe between television and movie at the same time.
No, why do we have to... Gah! As you can probably tell, I have very strong emotions on these uniforms.
But I think that's interesting too because it's almost an old Star Trek fans kind of reaction to wanting the 3-color solid uniforms like that instead of the layered quilted kind of ones where the colors are more subtle, where the departments are a little bit, you have to watch for them.
Yeah, because personally, I am always forgetting who's in what color means what, because they tend to change from series to series. And I'm just at least with this, I can get a general glance and know oh yeah, red is command or sometimes engineering. You've got yellow, which is usually engineering. You've got blue, which is health sciences and doctoring and stuff, and it's that makes things easier. And it's still easy to tell, but I don't like having to do that extra work.
No, and I do think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that because you've gone through a couple of these series now too, and so, like I said, you get that feel for it. But the preferences just, I think that's an interesting distinction. There are some silly moments here. I don't like at the end, the joystick to drive the ship. I think that's
stupid.
Going a little bit too silly.
Yeah, because you pointed out to me that that's what the people up front in the Enterprise are doing. They're the ones driving the ship, and I'm just it doesn't make any sense to me.
So there's times like that. There's times with the dance, with the mambo stuff that it goes a little too far.
The mambo one was funny though. The dance was weird, but the music was funny.
And it's funny it's also funny to see Riker without the beard. That throws you off a little.
Kind of throws you off a little bit, and then it also threw off the entire cast, which was kind of funny.
Well, the first year he doesn't have that. Oh. The first year he's clean shaven in the TV show, and then the second year he grows it.
Actually, speaking of like that character thing, another one of the things that kind of came to mind to me, when we first saw the guy with the visor, I forget his name.
Geordi.
Mm-hmm. When we first saw Geordi without the visor, I was like, oh, Because you mentioned to me at that point he has his cochlear implants. And the whole thing of him, like, going to the planet, getting his vision back, and watching a sunrise, I actually have, like, a small thing around that. My grandma, who is a hippie, goes to this festival once a year where you pay to get in, and all the money goes towards color glasses that they give out to, like, colorblind people towards the end of the night, and then they all sit and watch the sunrise together. And I immediately related that in my brain because I just thought that that was such a cool thing that they did. And it feels bad that, like, when he leaves, he would, like, he might lose his vision or it might stay. I don't know if we really got the answer to that.
We don't get a really good answer to it. I'm fairly certain that he still has his vision afterwards, although we see sometimes him using the implants. It's almost like it's just because he's used to having that extra edge. Well, that extra ability to see more. But they keep his eyes dark
I thought they
through
were
this and through the next movie and through some other stuff.
Yeah, they were like a very smoky white. It was really cool.
Well, the smoky white's the implants.
Oh.
And in fact, in First Contact, you actually see, like, lenses moving and spinning around and doing stuff.
That's cool. Man, I don't even remember that, but that's actually really cool.
But they can pay that off right now because it's one of the movies. They're not doing it week by week.
Yeah, so worst case scenario, they can just kind of, okay, that happened, but we're back to normal now that we're in the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
The continuity doesn't exactly have to completely line up.
It doesn't, but they were really good about that.
Well, that's good, because that's really good, like, representation in general. So
a lot of modern Star Trek doesn't really care about continuity or lining things up.
Ugh.
They change uniforms from ship to ship.
What?
Yeah, see, it's stuff like that, and then if they want to tell a story with a message, they have to beat you over the head with it, as opposed to
the subtle
something like this where it's, okay, we're going to do metaphor, we're going to give you situations, and we just want you to think about it.
Yeah, pick a side. Who do you think is right in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, it doesn't exactly tell you what to think.
Mm-hmm. And I just keep coming back to that's what's so good about these series, these older series.
Mm-hmm.
They do actually, by the time we come back for the final movie, Dominion War's over.
Okay.
Deep Space Nine's over. There's a couple of books, though, that tell us a little bit about what they do during that. Picard actually goes undercover as a secret agent.
That's
doing
cool.
some interesting stuff. That's fun to see. I enjoy... I have at least 3 racks of the novels over there.
You do have a lot of those books.
Because that's what we would do back before we had DVD and special features.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, we were talking about Riker grew the beard in the 2nd season.
Yes, and you mentioned to me when he grows his beard, or not? No, actually, I'm thinking of the wrong thing.
No, I think you're thinking of it correctly, because one of the books describes why.
I was going to say when he grew. I think it was I'm thinking of Deep Space Nine, where when he loses his hair, things are about to get serious.
You're thinking about in Deep Space Nine.
And
when
I just remember
Captain Sisko. I said when the beard comes and when he shaves his head, that's when he really becomes him, and that's also when things are about to get serious.
And the episode opened with like them at a party. He comes into frame, and I'm like, oh no.
But in one of the books, Riker grows his beard because the captain made him take a vacation.
What?
Like, I've got too much work to do. I can't step away. No, you need to. So he sends him off to this...
Required leave.
Yes, that kind of thing. And while he's there, okay, he was right. I can feel myself relaxing. He's climbing a mountain. He's out in Alaska where he grew up. And
Alaska?
Mm-hmm. That's canonically where the character is from.
That's cool.
And so since he's out in the wilderness there, he's letting the beard grow in. When he got back, he just left it. And part of it is because the captain would keep looking at him like, it is cosmically unjust that my first officer has more hair on his face than I do on my entire head.
Is that actually something he says?
It's in the book Strike Zone by Peter David.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But I think that's just about all we got for this week.
Yeah.
We're going into movie box
That's a boom!
Boom next week, so
Or
we'll
movie
see.
Wheel of Boom.
Movie Wheel of Boom. So it'll be Maddie's pick next week.
I've got a lot of really interesting stuff on my wheel, so I'm actually really excited for next week's episode.
Mm-hmm. And then we've also got some other stuff coming up too. We have conventions coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished adjusting, like, your wig for your costume,
Yes.
and working on props for yours. I need to work on a prop for mine as well, because my next one, it's going to be a Star Trek costume. I'm going to do Scotty, but I want to walk around with a transporter console in front of me.
Yeah, literally, as we're sitting in the library right now, there's a giant box about the size from my feet to my head, long-wise, which I don't know if I can really give much of an explanation for that. But it's just sitting there. The cats like to sit on it.
We're going to add buttons and lights, and we're going to see what they think of that concoction.
That'll definitely be interesting.
Concoction and Geek Fest. And then we've also got, we're just about caught up on My Hero Academia. So we may be talking
next week
about
is
a couple
our,
of things like that, too.
Next week is our final episode for that. And keep in mind, we started around a little bit before, probably halfway through the release of season 5, maybe towards the end of season 5. And as the episodes kept going out, we just kept going through and watching. And I'm actually surprised we caught up so quickly, because now I gotta find another series to put on, because we've basically finished it. Mm-hmm. And that we're supposed to get a next season next year, or towards the end of this year, I think. And I'm just what do I put on in the meantime?
But in the meantime, those of you who are sitting out there in the future already know what we've been watching and how cataclysmic that gets. So we might want to sit down and talk about that coming up here as well. So
probably do a separate one for that, where we can just talk about our experiences with that, which I think will definitely be very interesting.
So we've got some stuff coming up, and we will talk with you next week.
All right, bye.